tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Today we are commencing the second lecture on the Dhamma series named Dhamma Vinicchaya. We did the previous one and only program, I think 3 months ago, and due to the examinations here in IIT, we are unable to continue the program, and we are going to initiate it from this January, and this would be the second program for this Dhamma course. And I'm referring to Most Venerable late Renukane Chamdavimala Mahathera's book named Dhamma Vinicchaya. And I have given a translation of the book. I hope it has been shared in the WhatsApp group. And if Udyani or Vishwa can share it in the Zoom chat, that would be helpful to ones who are not in the WhatsApp group. And I'll be referring to this. I have translated 10 subject matters, question and answers raised by the Mahathera. And this would serve us as the handout for few lectures. Altogether, there are 100 topics that we'll be addressing throughout the course. And in the previous lecture, we attended to 2 topics. And I'm planning to cover at least another 2 or 3 today, and regarding the topics that we have regarding the discussion that we have started. If you remember, if I remind you, I think most of you must have forgotten that what we have studied last time. In the first topic, we got the handout. The first topic is, the first question raised by the Mahathera and answered by him is, did the Buddha make a rule or request that the disciples must make statues of him and worship them? Did he make such a rule or suggestion? Obviously not. But Mahathera's idea is, a person like Buddha would never encourage or ask people to do such a thing, because it's not his character. Even the very virtuous beings or the good beings who had a good mind, humble mind, would never request others to make their statues. But if others make it for venerating them, they would not stop it. Mostly that would be done after their demise. So Buddha, being the one who has eradicated all the defilements of ego and self-esteem, would surely would not have ask others to make the Buddha statues. But if someone makes one, a stupa or a monument on behalf of him, he would not hinder it, because in Mahaparinibbana Sutra, it's clearly mentioned that there are 4 types of beings who deserve a stupa after their death. They are the Samma Sambuddha, Pacceka Buddha, arahant, and a universal monarch who is the most righteous king that we can ever have. Due to their wholesome qualities, virtues, and also the benefit that they bring to the world, those people deserve veneration. Therefore, Buddha had not made such a request, but it is aligned with the Buddha's teachings to pay respect to a Buddha statue, that because it's a sign that resembles or which points towards the Buddha, or which is depicting something relevant to him, or as a sign that we get the Buddha's idea of the Buddha in our mind. We'll never be able to get the exact picture of him, because as we have not seen him clearly, but we'll be referring to him through this monument. Then we discussed the second question: how can one pay respect and venerate to the both Buddha who has attained parinibbana? We talked this in detail in the previous lecture. If someone missed it, you can attend to that talk in the YouTube channel and listen to that. If even the person has passed away, or even the person has attained parinibbana, if he existed in the past, if he really existed in the past, our mind is capable of referring to him. This is something that should be learned under Abhidhamma. For instance, if you are thinking about the great Mahacheti in Anuradhapura at the moment, or if you are thinking about the monument of Shwedagon, situated in Yangon, though we doesn't have a clear picture, we are not lively seeing it. If you refer to it, our object, according to Theravada teachings, our object is that exact monument in the present moment, though we are not aware what is going on in that exact location. So that's called referring with the mind, reference. So in terms of Abhidhamma, we say if you are thinking about that object, the present object is captured by the mind. Captured in the sense of a previously seen photo or our own experience. So the way it manifests to our mind is something else from the actual object. But for example, if someone is born now, for instance, I talked about this in detail the last lecture. If we are, for example, if someone comes and tells us about another monk, and he blames him or talks bad about the person, and we also get together and start to accuse the person together with him, and unfortunately later we get to know that the person is an arahant, that the person whom we accuse is an arahant. Then obviously when we are relating to the story, or when he was relating the story to us, and while we were listening and accuse him together, obviously there was an image in our mind, some kind of idea about that particular person. If he was a Burmese, or if he was a European person, if he was referring to a European person, for example, we would have a slight image in our mind resembling to the European that we have seen, or the Burmese we have seen. Then, and if we accuse the person, then later on we get to know that the person was a noble being, is a noble being. Then we would always, according to our teachings, is very crystal clear to us, according to fundamentals, we have accumulated a very bad karma by accusing a noble being, and it amounts to the Aryupada that would even hinder our attainments in this very life. Therefore, in such an occasion, we are not aware of, because if the storyteller would come to us with the actual photo of the noble being and say, this is the person whom we accuse, and he's a noble being or an arahant, unfortunately, so we are in trouble if he again says this to us. We cannot escape from our fault by saying the image I had while you were relating the story to me, the image I had doesn't correspond or resemble what with the actual picture, because obviously I will never be able to picture the actual person, because we haven't seen the person, because we are imagining a person through the story, and mostly that constructed object that we have in our mind is based on our past experiences. Therefore, but still, we'll never be escaped from the evil deed of accusing an arahant, because our minds were referring to that actual person who was living at that moment, and he was an arahant. Though it appeared to us, maybe it appeared to us as a dark person or a colored person, but actually the person is very whitish or very fair. Then we would never be able to escape from our deed, saying that the one who manifested in my mind at that moment doesn't match with the actual, his figure doesn't match with that person's actual figure. Because the reason is, why can't we get rid of that evil karma? Because I was referring to that person. In the same way, if someone accuses the Buddha who lived in the past, we would surely say he had accumulated a bad deed. Obviously. So why had he accumulated a bad deed? Because the Buddha existed in the past. It's obviously true that all his mind and matter has vanished. Some relics are still remaining, but all the namas and all the karma-born matter, the life is gone. He's not even born in another location. He has attained parinibbana. But someone bad-mouthing about the Buddha or accusing him, criticizing him, we all know as Buddhists that the person is accumulating very bad deed, and we are scared of it. So what is the reason? If the person has died, how would you accumulate karma? Because why now, for example, we may blame a past king who lived in Sri Lanka or lived in another country, and we would, if the person has blamed the person, every person has good and bad attributes, obviously. So most of the kings have served the country to some extent, and served the nations, and some may have their bad sides as well. Their down qualities, but that doesn't mean now if we blame such a king, we are not feeling as much guilt as much as we have accused the Buddha. And we know they have blamed the person, they are accumulating some kind of akusala by doing so, but we are not afraid of that because that person is not a noble being. But the Buddha, being a utterly purified person, but pure person, if someone blames, we feel like there's something big that person has accumulated, something very tangible karma the person has accumulated. So we would ask them to apologize for what he has done. So what is the philosophy behind this? The philosophy behind, the theory behind this is, by accusing a Buddha who has passed away, he is still accumulating karmas. Why? What is the reason? He was referring to those nama and rupa, the mind and matter the Buddha had in the past, though they have vanished already. He was referring to them. So he accumulated the bad merit by referring to those mind and matter of the Buddha and accusing them. In the same way, if we could venerate or pay respect to those mind and matter which had already vanished, that's true, it has already vanished, but if we could venerate them, if we could pay respect or pay homage to them, still we are going to accumulate, on the other hand, good merits. If someone could accumulate bad merits by bad mouthing the Buddha, someone could also get merits by praising the Buddha or respecting him, showing devotion to him. That all depends, because his mind and matter that existed in the past were pure from all the defilements. That is the simplest answer. So therefore, we are capable of paying respect to the Buddha who has already passed away and who has even attained Parinibbana. And the Buddha statues are just signs or monuments that resembles the person or that refers to that person. So seeing at the Buddha statue, it is easy for us to get the idea of the Buddha to our mind. That's the whole purpose of creating a Buddha statue. And also, if we could get his relics, the actual relics from the Buddha's body, that we will have a much closer connection towards the Buddha by paying respect to something that exactly came out of his body, that remnants of his body. And then also something he used, while he was alive, or maybe utilized them as his requisites, or Bodhi was where under which shade he got enlightened and spent 1 week. So there's some kind of a connection between them with the Buddha. So the connection is much lesser than the body parts, but there's a large connection with something that he has used. Even sometimes in our when our elders pass away, we sometimes keep them, and still we feel it, that this is the cup my parents used, this is the chair my father used or made, my grandmother used. So we feel some connection with it. In the same way, if we get to the Bodhi tree under which the Buddha attained Nibbana, attained enlightenment, Samma Sambuddhahood, obviously make a big connection with us. So we feel it much closer than a Buddha statue which is made out of some clay which has no relationship with the Buddha. So Buddha statue is the third grade. It is in the third grade among the statues or monuments, that things that would resemble the Buddha, but it helps us to get the idea of the Buddha clearly than paying respect to him to the empty space, like just getting the idea of the Buddha and showing respect to him. So Buddha statues are valuable means that through which we can pay respect to the Buddha. So the hidden theory is, if we can accumulate bad karma by accusing the Buddha who has passed away, in the same way we are able to accumulate a great merit by paying respect to the person who has already passed away. The reason behind is, we are referring to those mind and matter which existed in the past. And that was the whole discussion. And also, we also talked about there was an argument when the Renukane Chamdavimala Thero was alive, that Uddesika Chetiyas. We have three grades of the Chetiyas. I shall refer to the board now. 3 types of Chetiyas. When the Buddha, when Venerable Ananda asked how many types of Chetiyas are there, referring to the Buddha, he said there are three. First one is Saririka, then Paribogika, Uddesika. Saririka are the stupas or the parts that are remnant from his body. Mostly they are the bones, according to our literature. Then Paribogika are the things that he used, starting from the Bodhi tree under which he got enlightened, and also the Vajiras on the seat where he sat while getting enlightened, and also his robes and the utilities that he used. Some would have easily got destroyed, including the ball that he used to eat, and Patra Dhatu. Sri Lankans claim that it is in Sri Lanka, and it's very rare to locate, very difficult to locate where the actual Patra Dhatu is. There are few places that the hearsay or the history says that it's located in these areas, but it has been going from hand to hand from different kings. Even invaders had taken it back to India one time. So anyway, and Uddesika Chetya are the third category. So this Uddesika Chetya means a monument that doesn't contain any of the Saririka body parts of the Buddha or something that he used. So it could be made out of bricks or clay or whatever it is, or it could even be a painting of the Buddha. But if we use it for referring to him, that would still be a Uddesika Chetya. Those days, before the Buddha statues were made or the Buddha's the drawings were depicted, it started, according to the archaeological evidences, the Buddha statues were initially built by, we find the first Buddha statue during Kanishka's era. But when we go to Sri Lankan chronicles, chronicle means historical chronicles actually, there are records of even in the pre-Buddhist, pre-Christian era, in the BC age, we find some statues. They say statues were made of some arahants who visited Sri Lanka, the 5 missionaries who came. And there are some stories say that their statues were built. Anyway, the oldest recognized Buddha statue, as far as I know, as far as I have studied, is from the reign of King Kanishka, one of the 3 greatest empires, if I'm correct, in India, Kanishka's era, alongside with Asoka. And also the Chandragupta II was also a very great emperor. And also Greeks used to make Buddha statues. So before that era, and also after that, to a considerable time, in countries like Sri Lanka, they were afraid of drawing his picture because they believed that it is not possible to exactly depict his picture as it is, and if some features were misdrawn or wrongly drawn, that the people will feel bad of representing the Buddha wrongly, and maybe they would have thought it as a sin, considered it as a sin. So in some places, in some drawings, in some ancient monasteries, we find a Dhamma Chakra. Dhamma Chakra means a wheel of Dhamma has been shown, especially when it comes to depicting the descending from the Deva world to the Sankasa. We find in the ladder, which was created by the Sakka, as the story goes, a Dhamma Chakra was drawn on the top of the ladder and sometimes on the bottom of the ladder, indicating that the Buddha climbed down or descended from the Tavatinsa realm to the human realm. And sometimes Dhammacchaya could be shown, or sometimes Buddha's footprints could be shown as the depiction. So depicting that Buddha, referring to the Buddha instead of drawing his picture. Then all these could be Buddha Uddesika Chetyas, as long as they do not contain body parts of the Buddha, which we call the dhatus, the relics. We seldom call it body, but in the actual sense, they are body parts. That's the remnants of the Buddha's body. Then the Paribhogya Chetyas, anything that the Buddha has used. If a monument is being used referring to the Buddha without any relics or any other used object, then that is a Uddesika Chetya. There was an argument in Buddha, Renukane Chamdavimala Thera's era that there is nothing called Uddeshika Chetya, that your consideration itself would be the Uddeshika. And he refuted the idea. If you are interested in looking at it, getting more knowledge, you can read the handout and also refer to the previous lecture, which is in the YouTube. Now, today's topic is question is: are Buddha statues the only form of Uddeshika Chetya? I think it's very clear to all of us. The answer is no. Are Buddha statues the only form of Uddeshika Chetyas? I'll just read the paragraph and explain on when it is relevant. A Buddha statue is not the only form of an Uddeshika Chetya. Stories such as Swanna Kinkiniya Therapadana, Pulinupadaka Therapadana, and Pulinathupiya Therapadana show that one can accumulate great merit by paying respect to stupas that do not contain either relics, saririka, paribhogika, objects used by the Buddha, paribhogika items. In these stories, those who paid respect to Uddeshika Chetyas without such objects were able to experience blissful rebirth and ultimately attain the Nibbana, a liberation of Nibbana. In the ancient days, there was during a non-Buddha era, an ascetic named Narada. His name was Narada, and he had a retinue of 40,000 disciples. 40,000 disciples, and they used to pay respect. They paid respect to him, and they venerated him as the teacher. And he was 40,000 is a huge number. He was a very respected teacher of the era. Then once thought came to him, I'm venerated by everyone, most of the people in the country and all my disciples, and his reputation is very high. I mean, 40,000 disciples is not a small amount, but still he felt that I'm lacking something in my life. There's no one whom I could pay respect, because he knew he's not the greatest man. He has not attained the greatest level that a man could attain. He knew it. We can feel it, right? Everyone can feel it, because there are few things that we can naturally feel. We all know that we don't know everything. That's obvious. If someone says he knows everything, it's mostly a lie. You can have only two options. If someone says he knows everything, he has to be omniscient. He has to be an omniscient, a true person, a person who has truly known everything. Or he should be lying. You cannot have the third in between, because if someone can never be misguided by his perceptions that he knows everything, while not knowing everything, because everyone knows. Anyone would know that you are unable to say what is happening in another country at this moment. One may get some illusions or like hallucinations and see certain things, and may get deluded by certain experiences, but still, I don't think anyone would claim that he knows everything unless he's lying while not knowing everything, because it's very obvious to all of us. If someone says he knows everything, either he's lying or he's truly an omniscient. He knows everything. So therefore, all of us knows that we don't know everything, and all of us knows that we could still grow. We could develop ourselves. We could increase our qualities. We know that. So we know there could be a person who has reached a higher level. Maybe he's not existing at the moment. Maybe he's not existing in the world. Maybe some person could be the best player in the world. Some person could be the best orator in the world, narrator in the world, speaker in the world, teacher in the world. It could be, it could happen, but it's always subjective in one sense. But sometimes there can be the best person. We normally say God, G-O-A-T, the greatest of all time sometimes, right? But still, even that person would feel inside that he can still grow, he can still improve. We know there could be a person who has reached a better stage than me. So these two are very obvious to all of us. We all know that. Even someone would not acknowledge that. In the bottom of the heart, the person knows there could be a better person, better version of myself. I could come to a better version of myself. I could improve better than this. So it means I'm not the perfect person. There could be a person, or there can be a person, or there will be a person at least, who could reach that stage. So Venerable Narada, this ascetic Narada, had that feeling, and he knew, obviously, he felt as a person with honest heart and less ego, that there can be a person who is greater than me. So I should be paying respect to the person. Then he started to find out, and he felt that there's no person whom he could pay respect based on his sila and all this, maybe based on his concentration or whatever good qualities he had. Then he thought there could be now, how about a person who has reached the utmost level in the human mind? Samma Sambuddhahood is the topmost level one could ever reach. That is the ultimate definition of Samma Sambuddha. If a person could develop in wholesome qualities, not in the unwholesome side. No one would say developing the best killer in the world. That is not something that is praised. The person who gets angry all the time, or the best drunkard, or these are not the things that the world would praise. Obviously, we would praise the people who have done hard things, difficult things that are not harmful to the society, or like in sports and so forth, or someone who has done something for the greater benefit of the society, or someone has developed a certain skill, not harmful to the others, but shows that the person has a higher capacity. So those are the things those are the people whom we respect, and we keep it in high esteem. So Samma Sambuddhahood means, in simple terms, reaching the highest level a man could reach in terms of wholesome qualities. In wholesome quality, not in unwholesome side. Not in unwholesome side. Samma Sambuddha would never be the best killer in the world. No, he cannot do that, because that's not something to be praised. These are the things that should be abandoned. In terms of good qualities, things that should be developed, Samma Sambuddha is the highest position one can attain. So Narada, I don't know whether he saw any Samma Sambuddha in the past, or he could see it with divine eyes or whatever, he understood the Samma Sambuddhahood. I don't know what kind of a thought pattern went in him. There could be a person, or there was a person who has attained this highest level. So it's obviously possible, because then someone could argue with us, that is it possible to have the best human in the world? It is something that we can argue for nights, because isn't it subjective, or isn't it always relative? Can't a Samma Sambuddha, even a person who has reached Samma Sambuddhahood, can't he grow? So we are not going into that discussion because it opens up some deeper discussions that would need some Abhidhamma knowledge and some deeper analysis on Dhamma. So normally we say that is the highest level. That is the highest level that one could reach. So in our tradition, we believe you can reach this utmost level, and there's nothing higher than that. Samma Dhamma Sambuddhas are equal with each other, to each other. So we cannot say Dipankara Samma Sambuddha was greater than the Gautama Samma Sambuddha just because he appeared before, or just because he had or because he had some extra qualities. No, every Buddha possesses same. They are equal to each other. That's why they are called Asama. Asama Sama. Asama, they are unequal with all ordinary beings, other beings, including the Pacceka Buddhas. Asama Sama, and Buddhas were called Asama. All the Buddhas are equal, so they are called Asama Sama. They are equal to the Asama. Asama are the Samma Sambuddhas, and they are equal with the Asama, so they are called Asama Sama. So Samma Sambuddhahood is the highest level living being, not only a human, even among the deities and the Brahmas, the highest level a living being could ever reach. So Narada thought there have been Samma Sambuddha in the past lives, so I would pay respect to them. So he didn't have any relics, he didn't have a Paribhogya Chaita, because it was a non-Buddha's era. So what he did was he went into a river, gathered some sand, and hid them in the form of a stupa, considering that this is how the ancient stupas were made, the Buddhas. Maybe I haven't gone to the entire story in the commentary. Maybe he could recall the past lives and see the stupas. Maybe it was like that, or maybe the tradition came that this is how the stupas should be built, because building stupas had been a tradition since past. So he gathered the heap of sand in the form of a stupa, and then he paid respect. This is how the stupas of the ancient Samma Sambuddhas were, and he started paying respect to the stupa. And it didn't contain any any valuable object other than the heap, the sand grains. And because of his consideration, he considered this as a Samma Sambuddha or a stupa of a Samma Sambuddha. And then he paid respect throughout his own life, whole life. And this merit, and he was referring to the Samma Sambuddhas of the past. That's the most important thing. Even this sand has no value at all. Yes, it has some value. It could be used for construction and so forth, but it doesn't have a significance value in terms of being related to some great person. And he was relating to the Samma Sambuddha through this sand, referring to the Samma Sambuddha with this sand. And but still he accumulated so much great merit by paying respect to that. What was the reason? Because he considered it as the Samma Sambuddha or a stupa of the Samma Sambuddha. So his consideration mattered a lot. If, so for example, if now the question comes, if someone comes and breaks this sand, what would he accumulate a bad karma? If he had not known that this is stupa that is venerated by someone, considering as a Buddha, then obviously he would not have that thought of destroying something belonging to the Buddha or resembling the Buddha. Then obviously he would not, other person would not have accumulated a bad karma. And even if Narada at some time would consider, now it's time for me to, this is my personal opinion, if he had considered that this is not the, I'm not considering it as a Buddha stupa anymore, and if he had temporarily considered it, then even dissembling it would not be a sin as far as I think. But anyway, as long as he is considering it as a Buddha statue, it will be a sin for him because he has that consideration. If we get angry with the Samma Sambuddha and hit it, yes, that obviously will be a bad karma. So that's why breaking the Buddha. Now, what happens to the Buddha statues? Breaking a Buddha statue means even though it doesn't have any significance in terms of its material, it's just made out of sand and rock and cement and so forth. And those materials, even we use constructing our buildings. But as when we see the Buddha statue, we already have a conceptual agreement that this is something that resembles the Buddha. And we have that acceptance, and we know that the people are respecting it, and we have come into such a agreement on that. So in that case, when you are breaking a Buddha statue, that sense of breaking something related to the Buddha arises. So that's why they are considered as something sinful. If someone had not known that, he doesn't recognize what it is, and he would not have that feeling of when he is destroying or breaking it, he would not have that feeling of destroying it. So anyway, so this solid thing didn't contain any significant object in it, but as he considered it as a Buddha or a stupa of a Buddha or pagoda of a Buddha and paid respect to it, he accumulated great merit through it. And fortunately, he was born in the heavens after that life, and eventually was born in Savatthi while the Buddha Gautama was alive, and he got ordained in the Sasana, and finally attained arahantship at the age of 7. It's a very nice story. So I'll just read the story. The story of Pulinatupiya Thera. Once there was a hermit named Narada who lived in a hermitage on Mount Yamaka in the forest of the Himalayas. He had 14,000, not 40,000, 14, I beg your pardon, 14,000, right? 14,000. He had 14,000 disciples. One day, he thought to himself, everyone pays respect to me. I live receiving honor and veneration from others. I live receiving honor and veneration from others, but I do not pay respect to anyone. There is no one to admonish me. My life in the forest is meaningless without someone to whom I can show respect. I must find a person whom I can venerate, but he could not find anyone worthy of his veneration. This is another thing to consider here. Even this thought came to the Buddha, according to our commentaries, in his fifth week, after contemplating Abhidhamma and the deep Dhamma, especially the causality of the world, of the life and the world. In the 5th week, he started to think, because I'm a person who has known everything, but living as an individual, independent person without any teacher is not something very easy. not something very easy. Because if we have someone to refer to in a situation or in a issue that troubles us, or if we can get guidance from someone, that is a great help that we have. That is one of the higher requirements in our life. So normally we get the support from our parents during our childhood, from our teachers, or sometimes from a venerated or skilled learned friend, or even from someone who is younger to us but who has learned more than us, or who are wiser than us. So we always refer to someone in our problems when things are difficult to us. If we are unable to solve the things by ourselves, we need the help from someone. So from the very beginning, it's easy for us to have someone whom we can refer to or get the help from in a hard situation. So as a prerequisite, what we will do, we keep on respecting the person, venerating the person, because in our hearts we know he would be a great help to me in the future. So and he deserves that if he knows better than me. So that is one of great refuges that we have in our life, having someone greater than us in terms of virtue, in terms of skills, in terms of knowledge, and so forth. People start to lack this when they get older. So the Buddha thought it's a suffering to live without a teacher. So is there any person whom I could pay respect, whom I could refer as my teacher or a higher person? He understood the truth by himself, so he has no teacher, that's obvious. But is there anyone whom I could pay respect, who is wiser than me, who has a stronger concentration than me, or at least a virtue, sila than me? So I could keep him as in a higher place, so I can refer to him when it is needed. And when he searched for it, he found that nothing to say about a person who is higher than him. There's no one who was equal even. Then what he did was he kept the Dhamma he understood in the position of his teacher. Dhamma he realized became his teacher. Still he needed something to refer. So the reality that he understood, the truth that he understood, he was respecting this, and he was a man of truth, and he never went against that. Naturally, he would not go against that because of his character, and he kept it as his teacher, as our commentaries say. Now, this is something that is very useful in our and in our society, in the Buddhist society, who serves this the most? That is Mahasangha. That's why Sangha is, in one sense, it's a refuge. Sangha is a refuge because they have carried the Dhamma, maintained the Dhamma till now after the Buddha's demise. When the Buddha is not there, they advise us, and they have set an example to us that people can walk ahead of us. And Sangha, the ones who are practicing the Buddha's teachings and lessen their defilements or completely purify their minds from defilements, whatever it is, we consider that they have a higher virtue, they are wiser than us, they have a better concentration, and they have more emotional intelligence, so they could manage their emotions better than us. They could handle the situation. That's why when one of our beloved ones dies, we eventually go to the Sangha or the monks and start a discussion, because we know, from our heart we know, maybe they could give us some advice. They could help us during this situation. So when the things are not going well, we mostly Buddhists refer to the Sangha or the monks. So Sangha act as the guiding hold the guiding torch for the Buddhist society, and they have to be very careful in doing that, and they should elevate them to a level that they could lead the Buddhist society towards that direction. And within the Sangha society, we have respected teachers who has much greater experience than we do. So in this way, having someone higher to us is something very helpful, and also it eases and it gives some comfort to us, because in the end, there is sort of a resort that we could attend and ask them to help. In the end, when we say, I'm in this trouble, please help me. So I'm giving this problem to you and I'm expecting a solution. People in these days would not be able to give all the solutions as we want. Even Kisa Gautami requested Buddha to give life to the child, and Buddha is unable to do that. He's not capable of making a dead person alive. But he helped him in a different way. And he helped him to get out of the samsara and not to experience the separation of beloved ones again. Therefore, having a person higher than us is a great merit, or a great, rather than saying great, it's a great blessing, I would say, for someone, because life doesn't flow as we want. It's not a path of, it's not a rose bed that we can always have comfort, and things doesn't unfold as we want all the time. But now in the case of Buddha, is something that I personally think about is now regarding the Buddha himself, something extra that I want to refer here, to relate here. Regarding his life story, he established a society called the Sangha, his disciples. Most of the lay people would not know what are the rules that he set, and there are very stringent rules that are declared by him, and we are unable to cross them because it's just because he had said them. Just because he had said them. Now, for example, this happened to us when we were establishing the IIT. We made it a very democratic institute, and we always could rely on certain things, and we had to make the institute under the because it's located in Sri Lanka, obviously under the Constitution of Sri Lanka. And and also Buddha's Vinaya had laid down already, and we could refer to it as the foundation, but without violating the Constitution of Sri Lanka. So basic human rights and so forth. So there was always something above us. The Vinaya, obviously, that was the paramount thing that we held in esteem, highest esteem, and also the prevailing rule of the country, and also human rights and all this other stuff. And we could build it based on that. We could build the constitution or the act based on that. And we had some guiding lines. And if someone breaks the rules, if someone goes against that, we can refer to the Vinaya and say, no, you are breaking the rules set by the Vinaya. So you are doing something wrong. Because it was set by the Buddha, declared by the Buddha. Or you are breaking the Constitution of Sri Lanka, which was set by previous presidents in Sri Lanka, Theravada, and his people. And if we are breaking the human rights, something that is being accepted by the UN and all the most of the humans in the world. So now think about the Buddha's situation, because when something happens to us, because when we are running an institution with other my friend monks, we always, if something happens, where there is something we can refer to. According to what the Buddha has said, according to our teachers, or yoga ashrama or whatever teachers who are the forerunners, this example they have set, you are violating it. So don't do that. So we are setting this, we always have a parameter to refer. But think about the Buddha. When he is setting the rule, he was implementing new rule, and he would say, if you do this, sometimes some acts are very minor. For example, he would say, looking at the mirror to enjoy your face, right? Is an offense. And in doing that would makes you to commit a dukkata offense. Dukkata means one of the offenses led by him. Dukkata. Right? Dukkata means something that was done wrongly. And sometimes he says doing that would entail a pachitya. There's two different categories of offenses. Now imagine if there was someone, some disobedient or someone who didn't have much respect, or who was more type of a philosophical person. If we ask the Buddha, so what? What are you saying? That just doing this, okay, killing someone, yes, you are accumulating a bad merit. Okay, that has some validity because the people accepted. There was a norm that If you do bad deeds, you are going to experience bad karma. But there are some rules that Buddha has laid down that are not necessarily to be unwholesome. Not necessarily to be unwholesome. For example, if I sit on a chair or if I lie down on the bed, lie down on the floor of a monastery that belong to the Sangha, with my body uncovered, my upper body uncovered, I'll be dirtying making the thing dirty. And if I lean to a wall with the bare body, if my skin touches the wall, Buddha said it's a wrongdoing. It can be done by any person. You don't need to have an unwholesome mind to do that. But still, it's an offense. If someone teaches Dhamma to a lady more than six words or six lines, when there's no man nearby, that's an offense. And he's still preaching good Dhamma with a good heart, but still he commits the offense. So someone would have asked him the question, what is the basis for this? On what ground do you make this rule? He would never say, I'm making this based on the past Buddha's dispensation. Some Buddhas didn't have a Vinaya actually. In the long dispensations, it is mentioned by the Buddha himself, some Buddhas didn't promulgate Vinaya even. So surely he was not, we don't find any evidence in the book that's saying that this is how the past Buddhas have. Some rules, the commentary says, every Buddha would lay the same parajikas in a similar way, some sort of similar way. But it's not that every Vinaya rule that we have in our dispensation were found in the Kassapa Buddha's dispensation. So what is the basis for this rule? What is the basis? This is something that he had thought, looking at the situation of the society, and also surely he would have looked into the past Buddha's dispensations, and also with his vast wisdom, thinking about the longevity of the Sasana and so on. He has a reason for these things. Obviously, he has reason. But he set a rule saying that if you do this, your degree of fault is in the Dukkhata level. If you do this, it's a Pachitya level. For example, if you ordain a person who is lesser, who is younger than 20 years, Upajjhaya, the one who holds the seat in the ordination, would accumulate a Pachitya offense. It's a higher degree of offense. Others would get, the participants of the ordination, other monks, if they do it knowingly, they would get a Dukkhata. So why is this hierarchy was made? Why such faults were named? If someone asked the question, what is the basis for this? To what you refer to? Because if someone breaks a rule now, we have something to refer in the Vinaya text. If someone does something wrong, we have the constitution to refer in the country. Code of law that was set by a group of people. They were referring to something past and so forth. But some rules we find in the Buddha's teachings, a wise man would justify that. That's obviously true. That wise man would say, yes, leaning on the Sangika wall would make it dirty, so there is a reason for you to prohibit that. But when he said that this is the degree of the fault, I name it as a Pachitya and this as a Dukkhata, this as a Sangha, this as a... When you name it, if someone asks the question to what kind of basis you are referring to, Buddha may have that justification in him, but he had no one else to refer to. He doesn't have anyone else. He only answer he would say, that's how I see this. That's how I see this. Now this, to an ordinary person, I'm talking something psychological here. If I'm in a position and I'm setting some rules on my disciples, and no one else could understand, have come into my scope of understanding, and if I set rules and others are unable to perceive as I do, automatically it would generate a huge pressure in me, because everyone is behaving based on my decisions. So it automatically gives a huge pressure. Some occasions, when Buddha set the rules, some were unable to bear it, and some were sick, and he had to amend the rule. In one very special occasion, he repealed the entire rule in 2 stages. When King Bimbisara once, I think most of you have not heard about this story, when once King Bimbisara invited monks to have enjoy mango from his grove. You can enjoy mangoes from my grove. And monks, without knowing the limitation, they ate and they finished the entire mango in the entire grove. And they because it was offered, and they went and ate. And suddenly, on another occasion, king had the desire to eat some mango. They were like special grown mangoes because it's king's grove, obviously. That's why the king might have asked monks to come and eat, because he knew that mangoes were special. And when he said when he sent the message that he desires to eat mango, the gardener replied, send the message back, Venerable Sir, mangoes are over. The Buddha's disciples, whom you invited, have completely emptied the grove. They have eaten all the ripened mangoes, and this spread in the society. And people started to criticize that the disciples of the Buddha didn't know the limitation. So they have finished the entire bulk of mango in the king's grove. When this was heard, Buddha, I felt a bit strange, but he laid a rule prohibiting monks eating mango. There's a rule that monks cannot eat mango. Then what happened? Now, it was a very strict rule, actually. Very strict rule. You cannot eat mango, because the reason, some group of monks who didn't know the limitation ate all the mangoes in the grove. It's not that one group ate it, but because it was a collective effort, might have been a collective effort. So monks, even the good virtuous monk, would go and eaten 1 or 2 mangoes. But when a huge gathering of Sangha come and eat, obviously the mango grove would have ended. Mangoes would have ended. And partially, King Bimbisara also would have set some rules. We can argue on this all the day. But he was very straightforward, and he said, no more mangoes for monks. Then what happened? On another occasion, in a dana, in a donation, where food was being offered, people had prepared mango, but they have cut the pieces, and mango slices were there. And monks rejected, because when the rule is set, you cannot breach it. Why? You are respecting the Buddha. Now see, you are following it because the Buddha has said it, and he felt he doesn't put rules unnecessarily for what the monks have done. Yes, I think monks should not be eating mango for what they have done. Okay, sort of a very strong rule. Maybe it was a punishment. I don't know. That's Buddha's desire, his consideration. I'm unable to judge his opinion because he's Samma Sambuddha. So then the devotees were presenting mango slices, and monks rejected. And this was informed to the Buddha. Buddha said, okay, if there are slices, you can eat. Not the mango fruits. If are given in slices, you can eat. Okay. There was a relaxation of the rule. And the monks ate. If monks are offered mango slices, you can eat. Then what happened? In another donation, maybe for whatever reason, people couldn't slice all the mangoes. So there were mango fruits as they were. And maybe some were sliced, or they didn't have the opportunity to slice all the mangoes. And then when Jesus was informed, Buddha said, okay, eat mango. Now we came back to the zero. So looking into this context, it seems like maybe he imposed a punishment to the monks. So now looking into this, you see how now if a person set rules, and if you need to amend them, you need to relax them, or sometimes repeal it completely. Now this would generate a huge embarrassment in us, and also this would also generate some kind of a pressure. And Buddha is a person who had set, it's not just few rules like in any other tradition. I'm not aware how many rules are set for Jains, Jain sadhus. I'm not studied on that. I haven't studied that. But anyhow, the rules are, the amount is huge. I know that as a Buddhist monk who has studied the Vinaya. The rules are very, very, like number is very huge. And he had set all these rules by himself. Even Sariputta is not capable of setting a new rule. Sometimes people can request Buddha to set rules. That's what his father did. Suddhodana said, make a rule that the monks would not ordain others, children, without the consent of their parents. Some rules were set because of the request. And every rule had a reason. But the thing is, he was the only person who could understand the entire thing and finally, if something happens, they come to him. You have set a rule, and this is the problem. Okay, relax it. This is the rule. No, I don't relax it. Just keep it as it is. You have to find alternative. So think about this situation. Being the only person who has the authority to make rules, amend rules, and disciples are following it, and being a very kind person, if someone is very authoritarian, like a dictator, then authoritarian nature, then they would enjoy that. But Buddha was not such a person. He was full of compassion. He didn't have any attachment toward the Sangha. And he once said, I don't have the feeling that I'm controlling the Sangha. No. He didn't have that feeling. But he had to set the rules. But amount of pressure that would have generated, if that is something, because he doesn't have anyone to refer to. If something happens, comes to Sariputta, finally he has someone to refer. He would say, disciples, don't do this, don't do this. If someone is very stubborn and keep on asking questions, if he's unable to answer, you can go to the Buddha and say, yeah, he's telling this, give us an answer. And he has no anyone to refer to. So that's the power that he had. And obviously one would say, because of his omniscience, he would be able to answer. But if you look into this situation, if you stand on his shoes, in his shoes, and look in this situation, if you are given on that, if we are in that position, and people have come to you, you are the teacher, given up household life, given up responsibility of the parents, and completely dedicated themselves to your own teachings, and you are setting rules and you are lessening their freedom and all these, because of the vision that you have, solely you are the person, how much pressure that would generate in you. So Buddha was able to handle this. My personal opinion, this is pure personal, if Sariputta was in that position of the Buddha, he would not be successful as he would, as the Buddha was. Even though he's free from defilements, even though he's the foremost disciple among in the Sasana, if he had to play the role of the Buddha in that position, I'm not sure whether he'll be very much successful as the Buddha was. So it shows that it's not about removing the defilements. It's the character that he accumulated throughout the whole samsara, throughout his practice. So what I want to say is, having a teacher, having someone to refer, is a great bliss that we have in our psyche, because because in the end I have a refuge. I have someone to there is someone whom I could refer to. But for the Buddha, there's no one. Only the Dhamma he has done, and his own wisdom. His own wisdom. Someone can justify this, saying that he's omniscient, so he could know everything. In my personal opinion, I would look into that he is a character. Yes, obviously, he knows things, he knows everything, but that was his character, that he could bear this pressure and lead the Sangha, setting rules that were unheard of, and starting a legacy. He was not referring to any God even. He was not referring to a God, and he didn't say he was the son of the God. He's telling there's a truth in the world, and I have understood this, and follow this if you want to understand. If you want to come to the liberation that I attain. So therefore, he was a true leader. Actually, that's the figure of a leader. But even he himself, in the 5th week, felt that it's good that I have a teacher to refer to in a situation. Unfortunately, whatever, he couldn't find someone. So he had to solely depend on himself. Still, he kept the Dhamma he understood. His wisdom, his knowledge, his Dhamma he understood as the teacher. So, saying that, but the feeling of Venerable Narada, even though it is found in the literature in few places that some people were in search of a teacher who they could venerate. But this has some, in my opinion, there is a huge psychological effect behind that. And even the Buddha, after his enlightenment, searched for a teacher because he knew living without a teacher is a great suffering. So that's the thought that he had. It's something not relevant to the topic that we are talking, but I thought I would shed some light, insights on this topic. So when Narada couldn't find anyone that he could venerate. So what happened? So he went to the Arimaka river, gathered some sand and shaped it into a stupa, thinking the stupas of ancient Samma Sambuddhas were similar to this. He began to venerate the sand stupa as if he were paying respect to a Samma Sambuddha who was present, and he paid respect to that stupa considering it's a Samma Sambuddha. As a result of his merit, the hermit Narada was reborn many times in both human and divine realms, and in his final life, he was born into a wealthy family in Savatthi. He renounced his household life and became an arahant at the age of 7. He is known as Pulina Thupa Thera in our literature. The stupa that the hermit Narada worshipped in his past life did not contain any saririka or paribhogika items. It didn't contain any body parts of the Buddha, relics. It didn't contain any item that he used. It was an avattuka object, a mere heap of sand that became an object of veneration due to solely the reverence in the hermit's mind. It didn't contain any of these two, so it's avattuka. Avattuka doesn't mean it's not an object. It doesn't contain saririka or paribhogika objects. And due to the veneration he had towards it, the consideration he had, and it became a uddesika chetya. Without that respect, it would have remained as just a pile of sand. This idea is captured in the phrase uddissakang avattukang mamayana mattameva hoti. The sand heaped by this hermit was avattuka because it did not contain any relics or items used by the Buddha. It became a chetya purely due to the respect he had for it. This shows that a simple heap of sand became an uddesika chetya because of the hermit's reverence. By paying respect to it, he was able to accumulate great merit that helped him to attain Nibbana. If this is the case, there is no reason why a Buddha statue, which is venerated by many people, should not be considered as an uddesika chetya. Likewise, there is no reason why one cannot gain merit by paying respect to such a statue. Okay. Then we move on to the next question. If a Buddha statue is an uddesika chetya, why did the Buddha not instruct his followers to make a statue of him in the monastery to pay respect to when he was not present? Because as the story goes, when Venerable Ananda requested for an object of veneration when the Buddha is not present, because people came and they abandoned or they offered the requisites in front of the Buddha's kuti and they went back. They were not happy, they were not satisfied because they couldn't see him. So then Venerable Ananda thought it would be nice if they have a kind of object that they could venerate as Buddha, which could resemble him. Then he said there are 3 stupas, saririka, that the body parts, which you cannot obtain while he was alive, but only the hair relics could be obtained. Even the Pasubalikas got it. And paribhogikas that he used, and uddesikas, which doesn't contain the relics or any item that he used. Then Venerable Ananda requested, he had the desire of establishing a Bodhi tree in the Jetavana Ram. And Buddha allowed it. He didn't obstruct it. He didn't prevent the request, and he didn't bar it. So eventually, Venerable Mahamoggallana went to the Mahabodhi in Bodh Gaya, and he waited on the tree when a seed, a fruit of Bodhi fell into his patta. He brought it with his psychic powers to Savatthi, and it was planted. And the story goes, it grew up very quickly, and on the same moment, and Venerable Ananda requested the Buddha to spend the night under the Bodhi tree, abiding in the same attainments he attained under that Bodhi tree of Bodh Gaya. Asked him to spend the night under the Bodhi tree in Jetavana, in the same attainments that he spent under the Bodhi tree. So then Buddha said, he was a very, this whole story is in the commentaries actually. He gave a very nice reply saying that, Ananda, the attainments that I attained, that I was abiding in, under the Bodhi tree, there's no other place in the world where can bear that might of those attainments. They only suit that specific location in Bodh Gaya. Those attainments, we don't know what they were. Those attainments can only be attained. Only the earth, he could attain that, but the earth could not bear it. It doesn't match with the natural system. So I will attain the attainments that are possible or that suits this specific location. And he spent the night under the Bodhi tree. And it became something used by the Buddha. And that was known as the Ananda Bodhi. If you have visited Jetavana, you would have surely seen this Bodhi tree, still under good condition. So this was the story. So the question is asked, instead of making a Buddha statue, why Venerable Ananda requested for a Bodhi tree? I think it doesn't make sense. The question doesn't make sense because that was his desire. You cannot, if someone has asked this, we are asking why didn't he ask this? So that solely depends on the Venerable Ananda's desire, but it was his decision. So he might have thought, the Bodhi tree would serve the purpose. Because it's attractive or it's something natural, rather than making a Buddha statue, and which cannot be made as the Buddha himself. Like you cannot make a exact statue resembling the Buddha, and always there will be faults in it, and it's not something that can be done easily those days. So instead, he would have thought to plant a Bodhi tree. So what Mahatera is also saying, if that is the question, that question is not very nicely presented. So this is a question raised by some people who do not want to consider a Buddha statue as an Uddesika Chetya. Maybe people have raised this question in Mahatera's time. When questioned by Venerable Ananda, the Buddha simply mentioned that there are 3 types of Chetyas. He did not instruct that any of them be established in the Jetavana monastery. Buddha didn't say to establish anything. The idea of planting a Bodhi tree came from Venerable Ananda. When this idea was presented to the Buddha, he approved it. He didn't obstruct it. He didn't bar it. If Venerable Ananda had suggested making a Buddha statue instead of planting a Bodhi tree, the Buddha would likely have approved that as well. The reluctance to consider a Buddha statue as an Uddesika Chetya seems to stem from a misunderstanding of the conversation between the Buddha and Venerable Ananda. There is a hierarchy among the 3 types of Chetyas. Sarireka Chetya is the highest. This is the highest Chetya. Because it comes from the Buddha's body. While the Uddesika Chetya is the lowest, making the Paribhogika Chetya higher than an Uddesika Chetya. So hierarchy would be 1, 2, 3, Uddesika Paribhogika, Sarireka Paribhogika and Uddesika. Creating a Buddha statue as an Uddesika Chetya is not an easy task, whereas planting a Bodhi tree is relevantly simple. Therefore, it is possible that because the Paribhogika Chetya is higher than the Uddesika Chetya and easier to establish, Venerable Ananda chose to plant a Bodhi tree instead of making a Buddha statue. It seems that this question lacks significance. There is, however, a more important question concerning the planting of Bodhi tree in the Jetavana round. Now, next question will be quite interesting. And my opinion is that is Venerable Ananda's choice. So why we are asking, it's not very wise to, or very, I would say, it won't be a properly posed question, but questioning someone's choice, because that's what Ananda felt. Right? So why did Venerable Ananda plant a Bodhi tree in the Jetavana monastery where there were already many Paribhogika objects there? Obviously, the Buddha's Gandha Kuti, the Kuti was there, built by Anathapindika, and his chairs were there, beddings were there. Many things that he had used. Obviously, he was a human being and he would have many utilities. So there would have been many other Paribhogika Chetyas. Then instead of using them, because Bodhi tree, one good question is, a Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya He spent only one week under it. In our literature, there's no mentioning of Buddha visiting and spending night under this tree again. If he had attained some special attainment or achieved something in a certain place, we tend to go there and have that vibe again. Personally, I would go there, for example. If I have attained done some special task or achieved something as my personal achievement, I would prefer to go there and ponder on that or think about that situation sometime and to get that vibe again. But it is not mentioned in our literature that the Buddha ever visited that place again. Because that is the place where he became the Buddha, Samma Sambuddha, the highest person in the entire universe. Would have visited there and spent some time. The literature doesn't mention that. So he only spent 7 nights under this tree. Only 7 nights. After he left that place, he spent some weeks around that area. He had visited the Gaya again, yes. That region he has visited, but not that exact place where he got enlightened. So now, Venerable Bhananda is bringing something from the tree, and it's not the tree itself, he's bringing a seed and planting it in another location, a tree where he got enlightened. Yes, something is special because that's the place where he got enlightened. But now, after he got enlightened, he's a Buddha, he's a Samma Sambuddha. Now think about the bed he was lying down, or chair he was sitting, maybe a chair he was sitting, or the carpet he was wiping his legs, or maybe. If as we say, the dust doesn't remain in his body, he was standing on it. He would always walk on it at least. So all these objects were there. Many objects were there. Ananda could have easily requested one, please give this to us so we can keep it in a special place. And it is being regularly used by the Buddha, unlike the Bodhi tree, under which he spent only 1 week. So instead of placing another Paribhogika Chetya or selecting some from that some considerable amount of requisite that Buddha had, and why didn't he place it in a very special place so people would pay respect? It's obviously a good question. So this is what Venerable Mahathera suggests. Although the Mahabodhi tree is a Paribhogika Chetya, it became one solely because the Buddha spent a week under it. Yes, enlightenment was there and spent 1 week. In contrast, the Kuti in Jetavana was a place and the place the Buddha frequently used. That is the place where he used to stay inside. What kind of vibe would have been? Because he's spending some days, nights, attainments. Sometimes he may have preached some Dhamma to the Devas. Yes, that would have been a very special place. The seat in the Dhamma hall, yes, where he uttered all these Dhamma, Dupattana Sala, was something he sat on many times. There were also many other objects in the Jetavana monastery that the Buddha used more often. Even though the Mahabodhi tree is a Paribhogika Chetya, the trees grown from its seeds have only a limited connection to the Buddha. Yes, consider about the tree, okay, it's a special thing. But now we are taking a seed from it, and there is a connection with it. Obviously, there's a connection. A sprout was brought to Sri Lanka. It has a connection, huge connection. But it's not the actual Bodhi tree. It's not the actual Bodhi tree. And while there were many other objects that the Buddha frequently used, why did Venerable Ananda choose to plant a seed taken from that original tree? It is worth considering why Venerable Ananda arranged a Bodhi tree to be planted when there were many other objects in Jetavana the Buddha used more frequently. No Dhamma book provides an answer to this question. This is how I, the late Venerable Renukane Chamdavimala Mahathera, answer it. Very interesting, his question. His answer. The following may be the reasons why Venerable Ananda chose to plant a Bodhi tree in Jetavana instead of selecting a frequently used item as a Paribhogika Chetya. This is solely his opinion. A Bodhi tree has more attractive appearance than beds or chairs. Obviously, it's something, when a Bodhi tree grows well, it's very attractive, I think we all know that, than bed or a chair. This could be one reason why a Bodhi tree was planted in Jetavana. Moreover, even before the appearance of the Buddha, there was a custom among the people of ancient Jambudipa to worship great trees inhabited by spirits. They believed some trees, the mighty trees, they believed that there are some spirits must be inhabiting or living there, taking it as the host. And so they had the custom of paying respect to trees. So it would be easy to replace that. Instead of paying respect to a tree where a deity is hosting, why don't we plant a tree under which the Buddha got enlightened, or plant a tree from a seed of the tree where Buddha got enlightened, and start respecting it. So that would have been, because people used to pay respect, or at least to have veneration towards great mighty trees. So this would be an easier task for them to replace that, like to have that veneration towards the Bodhi tree again. So therefore people were already accustomed to paying respect to trees, and it is likely that as a gesture of homage to the Buddha, they would have preferred to honor a Bodhi tree. This could be another reason why Venerable Ananda chose to plant a Bodhi tree, his appearance and the custom of paying respect to trees. Another reason could be the longevity of the Bodhi tree. Yes, there's another reason, longevity. Unlike objects such as chairs and beds, a Bodhi tree is not easily destroyed by disaster like fire or water, nor can it be stolen by thieves. Yes, obviously you cannot steal a tree unless you cut it and take it for wood, and or it doesn't get destroyed because of rain or so forth, unless it falls down due to a thunder strike or a very strong wind. It's very unlikely a well-grown tree would get destroyed easily, right? So its longevity is high. A Bodhi tree can endure for a long time even without special protection. Yes, you don't need to put much protection, because if it was a chair, it can be stolen away, and you have to, in these days, you have to at least to have a glass box to protect it, right? So Bodhi tree, it can just grow in the nature, and it could endure all the hardships of the nature, even without special protection. This could be another reason for planting a Bodhi tree in the Jetavana monastery. So three reasons: its appearance, and the custom the people had of paying respect to the Bodhi tree, so he could replace it with the Bodhi tree, and then the longevity. It could endure hard environmental conditions. When Buddhism spread in all around the world, it would not be possible for everyone to obtain Saririka Dhatu to pay respect to the Buddha, because Saririka Dhatus are obviously limited, because Buddha's body had a size, right? So I have to say one thing, because if you gather all the relics in the world these days that are claimed to be Buddha, it will surely overrun the Buddha's body. It should be more than Buddha's body, obviously. So actual relics are quite rare, and it's not easy for everyone to obtain that, especially after his passing away. Only the kings got it, special ones got it, not ordinary people. Only Drona Brahmana hid one tooth in his head, and it said the Sakka took it away. And so it was not easy for everyone to obtain, ordinary people to obtain relics. But Bodhi tree, yes, that is something that is possible. It would not be also easy to obtain other objects used by the Buddha. Obviously, objects would be limited, because those objects would not bring forth their offsprings or some sprouts. They are themselves. When they get destroyed, that's it. They are no more. On the other hand, Bodhi trees can be easily propagated through seeds and sprouts from Mahabodhi or other Bodhi trees connected to its lineage. So always keep it in mind, a Bodhi tree becomes venerable or an object of veneration only if it is connected to the Mahabodhi. That's a very important point here. So if this is the Bodhi tree under which the Buddha got enlightened, for example, this is the place where I got enlightenment, Mahabodhi. Anything, any sprout or a seed, any tree which got propagated through its sprouts or seeds, and a tree and another tree which propagated from second generation. Now this is the first one, second generation. Third. Or then when we go further, all these trees deserve the veneration. But this is the utmost one. This is a great Bodhi tree. From the sprouts even, the second, third, fourth, right. All the trees in this lineage are the ones which deserve the veneration. But there are many Asatta Bodhi trees other than this great Bodhi tree. So they do not deserve the veneration. They are just trees. They are just trees. If someone just take a tree from the forest and plant it, and you can take it as an object of that refer to the Buddha, because anything can be taken as an object referring to the Buddha. So a tree could be taken. That's obvious. That's okay. No problem. That's not an issue. But the real energy or the real connection is found only in trees that are connected to the lineage of Bodhi trees, sprouting from the Mahabodhi. So in Burma, ironically, from other trees which are not connected to the great Mahabodhi, they do eat leaves, Bodhi leaves. There's a curry. Actually, I couldn't eat it because as a street, because my way of upbringing couldn't do that. Didn't allow me to do that. So somehow it can be, because those trees have no special significance. They're just trees. A Bodhi tree becomes venerable or something deserving veneration only if it is connected to the Mahabodhi by whatever means. Then the question comes, how about lineages that comes from some birds? They, from their excrement, after they have eaten the seeds, the sprouts trees do sprout, like propagate in many places. We call Kaka Bodhi in Sri Lanka. In my opinion, I would not consider it as something coming like in the lineage, but one can argue on that. One can say it still has the lineage, it still has that connection. But personally, I would take normally the things that are planted by the Bodhi tree from this plant that emerged or propagated from the seeds planted from the Bodhi tree, or things which propagated from the sprouts of the main Bodhi tree, right? But the Kaka Bodhis, the argument is open. That's my gut feeling that personally I don't get that respect towards that. But anyway, one can argue on that. It's open to debate. When Buddhism spread all around the world, it would not be possible for everyone to obtain Saririka Dhatu to pay respect to the Buddha. It would also not be easy to obtain other objects used by the Buddha. On the other hand, Bodhi trees can be easily propagated through seeds and sprouts from the Mahabodhi or other Bodhi trees connected to its lineage. Therefore, it is possible to assume that Venerable Ananda decided to plant a Bodhi tree to train devotees to pay respect to the Bodhi trees, which could be easily obtained in the future. So another fourth reason, something that could easily be obtained by many masters of Buddhism. So there were four reasons: its appearance, the custom the people had in Jambudvipa of paying respect to the Bodhi tree of the trees, and he could alter this with the veneration to the Bodhi, and the endurance it has as a tree, and since it is something easy to be obtained, easily obtainable, so he might have used this. So this is Mahathera's opinion. So therefore, instead of making a statue, or instead of taking another Paribhogika Chaitya, which were abandoned in the Vijayanagar, and which had more connection with the Buddha, he used the Bodhi tree for many other reasons. So that was his opinion. So then next month, we'll be taking the class. I'll be talking about many other interesting questions, a few questions. Suttas, in Suttas, Buddha has said there is no one equal to him, Appatimo. So isn't this the prohibition of making Buddha statues? Then when did this tradition of making Buddha statues begin? Did Buddha exist while the Buddha was alive? Another interesting topic. Did all the ancient teachers of Dhamma unanimously accept the tradition of worshipping Buddha statues? By respecting which Chaitya, Saririka, Paribhogika, Uddesika, can one get more merit? Another important question. Do the actual relics of the Buddha display any miracles that could help identify them? They seems like the basic stuff in Buddhism, but they are very relevant. These things do matter to us in our day-to-day life. But throughout the course, the questions will get much deeper, and we'll also go into some philosophical things, like deep Dhamma points in the coming lectures with the questions about karma, how the karma is accumulated, how the karma is stored, and so forth. Even these kind of questions will be discussed, and also especially about Sangika Dana, how the dana should be made, and how one should treat about this dana. Those things will also be discussed in the coming lectures. So I conclude the lecture, giving the opportunity to ask questions.
Now it's time for questions, and if you have any, please press the raise hand button to ask. Thank you. There is one question. If there is a certain monk who engages in immoral actions, would it be considered a violation of the noble precepts, which is like, Arya Upavada, to point out that monk's immoral behavior? And or if a monk is immoral, and can we, as lay people, highlight that monk's immorality?
Can you repeat the first part? I couldn't hear it.
If there is a certain monk who engages in immoral actions, like, would it be considered a violation of the noble precepts, which is like, Arya Upavada, and to point out that monk's immoral behavior? Because nowadays, we can see some monks' behavior on YouTube or even live, which shows immorality. And so, and as lay people, how should we act then?
It's something that need to be clarified. One thing is, blaming a monk is not a violation of a precept, it's a karma. Actually. And if someone has blamed or accused a noble being, it's a karma called Arya Upavada, which will hinder attainment in this very life, and also which will hinder the person from attaining a blissful destination after death, unless the accuser is a noble being. Sotapanna could also still accuse some others, but that will not prevent him from attaining a blissful realm, but it would prevent him from attaining the higher noble stages in this very life. Arya Upavada is accusing a noble being. Accusation should happen, accusing them in terms of caste, in terms of their physical appearance, in terms of their offense, like false, whatever behavior, in terms of using harsh words, such as a fool and so forth, ox and so forth. So there are 10 ways that accusation could happen. If a noble being is accused, purposefully, knowingly that he is pure, or due to a misperception. For example, it happens like a noble being is talking with a lady or some in some place for whatever, like a sudden meeting or something that he didn't organize, and if that person comes out, or lady comes out and behaves in a way that she had some affair with the person, and you are very much convinced by whatever happens. Like what happened with Sundari and Chinchamanika. On such occasions, some people may start believing that the Buddha had sex with her, or a noble being had a relationship with that woman. So you are very much convinced. You have honest mind, thinking that this person has violated the truth, and you blame. But it happens to be, unfortunately, that the person is a noble being and he has not done it. He has not done, because a monk of noble character would not do that. So, but the person, the accuser, is pure in the mind. He or she thinks is correct. He or she is correct. But in the objectively, that person has not done any fault. Even under such scenario, the accuser accumulates the arupavada karma. There's no escape saying that I was honest. No, no way at all. Then, so that's something that we have to be careful, because sometimes our misperceptions could lead us to accumulate some bad deeds if the person is pure. And the person has to be a noble being in order to hinder your attainment. If the person is a noble being, a very virtuous person, sometimes it may hinder you. It may hinder your progress. It can be, but it's not ultimately sure. It could still hinder. Like accusing a very great being like a bodhisattva who has been virtuous in that life, or a being who has been very much devoted in practice and who had a very strong sila. Accusing such a person could have easily hindered and even lead to the bad destination. So it doesn't need to be a noble being. But if a noble being is sure to hinder, unless the person has asked for forgiveness from that person, or at least if the person has left, paying respect to where the person has left, to the direction where he left, or asking permission from another senior venerable instead of him. Right? So it can be done in various ways. The apologize can be done, asking for forgiveness, but it needs to be done in order to attain noble status, even jhanas, in this very life. Then also to go into a higher destination, a better destination after that. Then what about accusing a person who is, now if the person is really noble means really virtuous, even is a puthujjana, it's a very bad karma. So we'll be very careful on this. Because things are very subjective. The way we look into the world, the way we think about the world is very subjective. If the person is violating rules, yes, then there is a parameter, because you knows there is a rule and the monk is doing it, but still there can be exceptional cases because the Buddha has allowed certain allowances, given some permission, and sometimes you may not know the rule entirely. So it's very, very dangerous in that sense, accusing. So, because sometimes some rules we have some allowances for the relaxations the Buddha had made. The layperson people don't study the entire rule, right? They just know the rule from the outset. So they may not have a thorough understanding about it. So they may be accusing someone who is not violating the rule. So it's very dangerous in that sense. And then what happens is, if the person is accusing about one of his opinions, okay, this Bhante rejected this opinion, this Bhante had this view, and you start accusing because of the emotions and all. So these are very subjective. We're very careful with that. If the person is violating the rules, yes, there's some way like to express your disagreement. Possibility is there, but still you have to be very careful in the wordings that you make. But if it is regarding opinions, because opinions are subjective, opinions do change over time. So that is something that we have to be very careful. Holding a viewpoint, holding some view about the society, about the life, who may have obstructed certain reformations. Yes, these are very subjective. If people started to criticize the person because of the views he held, that is quite dangerous. Because it could be a very good person who is holding a view that is against my view. Maybe about politics, maybe about the way the economy should be run, maybe about the rules that are brought to Buddhism, how the society should run, or how a family should be run. What is the opinion of how the family, what should be the opinion of the general masses? So these are very subjective, because both the sides have their opinions. So criticizing people on that is quite dangerous, because if the person is virtuous, just because he had a different viewpoint that didn't align with you, then people are, because that I see in social media, just because some some monks are talking towards a certain politician, I would not appreciate that them talking in the public. But if it happens to be the person that you who don't like, and you start accusing the monk. If that monk had reasons for talking that. But he's accusing a person who is, because holding a view towards one person, he's not becoming unvirtuous. Yeah, that is personal preference. But if someone is breaking the rules, yes, then he deserves some criticism. But because of a viewpoint or a preference that he has, people are criticizing the person. That's a very big mistake that people are making. So then, how about a monk breaking the rule? How about a monk breaking the rule and violating the Vinaya? And if the person is very clear, then the lay person has to be very clear, crystal clear about it, right? Then the person will be very clear. In such occasions, you can express your criticism. It's not good that you are doing this, and it is not pleasing to us. And you don't need, the person doesn't need to use harsh words for that, like using that he's an unvirtuous person, he's a dussila, he has no qualities at all. These people are just like disgrace to the Sasana. These are very harsh words. They're very, very strong words that one is using. Unless you are very much sure about it. Very much sure. That's why I'm warning, because the a rule is very vast. In some occasions, the Buddha had given permissions. For example, if I tell a very interesting rule, which is even very difficult for me to apprehend completely, there is a rule for monks. Okay, there is a rule for monks. If the husband and wife are influenced by the lust to have sex, while I'm in the room, while I was being served in those days, even the monk could be served the food in the bedroom. Possible, because their houses were not very large and all this. And if the monk feels that they are influenced by sexual feelings, both of them, I'm not supposed to stay in there. I'm not supposed to, if I get this, at least some idea that both of them have such feelings, and it's not a proper place for me to stay. I should be leaving. So the rule says that by the Buddha, given by the in the Vinaya Pitaka, these are the Mula, the Pitaka content. You break the rule only if you stay closer to the bed. It's not that they are having sex, but they are influenced by sex. At that time, if I stay closer to the door, even in the room, I'm not breaking the rule. He is not blameworthy in that sense, because he's not breaking. It's anapattivada. So obviously, even I would say, why you are staying there? You are not supposed to stay there. You better leave. But according to Buddha's standards, if it's closer to the door, inside the room, if you have not gone beyond the hattapasa, like 2.5 cubits from the door, you're not committing an offense. It means you're allowed to stay there. I don't know whether he will encourage you to stay there, but you're not at fault in staying there. This is anapattivada. Now look at this. This seems from the very outset. This seems very inappropriate for monks. And it was Buddha's decision that if he stays in such a scenario, both are influenced by sexual feelings, and in the bedroom, there's no necessary for me to stay there. And even in the bedroom, you violate the rule to go beyond the hattapas of the door. In some rooms, it's going beyond the half, in the middle, from the middle. You're getting closer to the bed, yes, that's why you are violating it. So now look at this. Now, this, I would not say monks would do that, but technically speaking, monks can do that. Now imagine, there are few such rules of that caliber. For example, a monk stays in a room alone. Suddenly a lady comes and sits and starts talking. Technically, according to the rule, it is not necessary for me to stand up and leave. No, I can just keep on talking. The offense is If I initiate this journey from my kuti or from my place where I was there, with the intention of enjoying with a lady, sitting with a lady, and if I come from that place and sit expecting someone or a specific one or someone, but whoever, and if I'm sitting there, I came and sat and the lady sits, that's the offense that I'm committing. If I was sitting there and suddenly lady came and then my desire starts to arise, I start enjoying talking with her, there's no offense according to the teachings. Even I had the desire to talk because my initial approach was pure. It clearly says in the Dhamma book. So now looking from outside, one would say that he's breaching, he's not following Vinaya. How could he talk with a lady alone by himself? If this was raised to a Vinayadhara, if this question comes to us, now monk has been sitting with a lady and talking alone, but they take an action. As a person whom I know Vinaya, the obvious question I'm asking him, what was your intention of walking here, coming here? No, I was sitting there with a pure intention. As lady came and sat, then I have no other way to investigate. I'll just say he has not committed an offense. He has not done an offense. So therefore, Vinaya is vast than what lay people knows, what they know. So Buddha's rules. Sometimes you may be surprised how rules have been elaborated. So it said you have to be very careful when you are accusing a monk of breaching rules, because I would say boldly, most of the lay people don't know the Vinaya in depths. They just know some things that they have heard from here and there. So it's always better. But if the monk, now objectively speaking, if the monk is breaching the rules, you are certain about it, and he's breaking them, truly he's breaking them. Yes, the lay people have the right to talk. They have the right to criticize. They have to try to not to show high respect. They have that right to do that. But that right doesn't mean people have the right. Anyone can say anything. But as a monk, I would say, because monk sila is very vast, just because someone has done one fault, it doesn't make him completely a bad person. So it's very dangerous accusing a monk, even though you know that he is breaching some rules. But if the person is parajika for sure, and there's no doubt in it, and there are proof for that, yes, that time, yes, you can surely express your concerns and say, no, I'm not going to respect you, and we know you have children, you have breached the rules, and we know what is happening there, and I'm not willing to pay respect to you. And even someone criticizing such a person is not going to accumulate Aryupavada. Aryupavada is for blaming a noble being. Even blaming a virtuous Putujjana is not accumulating Aryupavada, but a huge karma will be accumulated. That's for sure. So therefore, that's the answer I would like to give. You always, if you want to criticize, you can say, this seems not appropriate. In my opinion, not that much appropriate. I would prefer if it had happened differently and so forth. You can say your opinion. Anger is always harmful. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Vakasaktaha chabhumatta divana gamantika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakhantu sambuddha sasanang akasaktaha chabhumatta. Devana gamantika punyantang anumoditva chiran rakhantu sambuddha dasabaladhari. Akasaktaha chabhumatta devana gamantika punyantang anumoditva. Chirang rakhantu sambuddha savakan chirang rakhantu tan sada. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo satan samagamo hotu yavani bala pakti. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo satan samagamo hotu yavani bala pakti. ඉමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ මුක්ඛ යාව නිපාන ඉදම්මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයාවං ඉදම්මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයාවං ඉදම්මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයාවං සබ්බ දුක්ඛා අමුච්ඡතු